This is Coast Guard Vessel Traffic Service San Francisco. Following is the Offshore Vessel Traffic Advisory is of 1045. There's no reported traffic in the northern traffic lanes. No reported inbound traffic from the west. Outbound to the west is the Gulf Reliance at a position bearing 236, 4 nautical miles from San Francisco Sea Buoy. Unreported course of 224, speed 10 knots. 1115 estimated waypoint 3 Whiskey. There's no reported traffic in the southern traffic lanes. Listen for the next broadcast on Channel 12 at 1115. Coast Guard Vessel Traffic Service, San Francisco out.
Recording.
All right. Good morning. Welcome, everyone. Today we're going to take this opportunity to celebrate with Sector San Francisco the retirement of a shipmate and a friend, Daniel Brennan. We're here to commemorate over 30 years of dedicated public service, with the last 26 years here at Vessel Traffic Service San Francisco as a Vessel Traffic Management Specialist. It's my pleasure now to introduce Captain Cirolo, Commander, Sector San Francisco. Captain?
Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here. And a special greeting to Dan's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Brennan. Good morning. One of the opportunities that I appreciate most as a sector commander is the chance to celebrate the service of those that have made maximum commitment to our nation. We're all familiar with the pomp and circumstance surrounding active duty retirements, but we sometimes overlook the hard work and dedication of our civilian staff, as it often goes unnoticed. Our civilian shipmates are like the rudder of our ship. It's relatively small in size compared to the hull of the engines, but their continuity, subject matter expertise, local knowledge, and experience keep us on course and tracking towards the mission we execute every day. And I'll go one step further. When it comes to our vessel traffic service, we're often remiss in acknowledging the great work that they do, let alone recognizing the many years they put into perfecting their skill set. You never hear, "Great watch today," or "Good job, nothing ran aground this evening," or "We didn't have anything hit the bridge this evening." Now, I'd better be careful. But I ask you, why? Why don't we hear that? I would respectfully offer that a good day in the vessel traffic service is when everyone stands watch, stays on their toes, and nothing bad happens. But that's not glamorous, nor is it something that's going to make headlines in the Chronicle. No. The only time that VTS makes headlines is when something bad happened out on the waterway. And that's a shame, because this watch is tedious. It requires great judgment. It requires intense focus, as well as a level of patience that can't be quantified in words. In short, standing a VTS watch is hard work that can best be described as thankless. And that's why today is so important. Because today we honor one of those shipmates, Mr. Dan Brennan, who served the Coast Guard for 30 years here in the Bay Area. To truly appreciate that length of time and changes Dan has seen, let's see by a show of hands who remembers the 70s. Oh, wow, there's way more hands than I expected. How about the 80s? Okay, all right. Okay, so there's a pretty good number. I would say that, originally I was going to say I don't want to know because I didn't expect that many hands to go up. So you guys are messing up my comments. But instead, I'll give you a kind of a view of where the world was in 1984 as Dan finished up boot camp. Ronald Reagan was in office, and he carried 49 states in the Electoral College during his re-election. Steppenwolf and Deep Purple, two of Dan's still favorite artists, both released albums that year. The first Apple Macintosh was released, and Miami Vice premiered. Although, as I understand it, Dan still prefers to watch The Rockford Files and I Dream of Jeannie to this day. I thought the coolest thing that happened, though, was that the Space Shuttle Discovery completed her maiden voyage. Do you remember that, Dan? She went on to complete 39 voyages over 27 years, gathering more space flights than any other spacecraft. but you still had 3 years of service on her, Dan. Anyway, I mention these things to give you an idea of all that has changed, modernized, and been created since Dan first started as a Raterman third class aboard Coast Guard Cutter Rush that year. After 4 years of service, Dan left the Coast Guard, but applied to the San Francisco VTS on the recommendation of his old chief. He was hired as a vessel traffic controller in 1990. So 1990, let's think Exxon Valdez and The Godfather Part 3. And ever since then, it's an underrated movie, by the way, and ever since then, Dan has been here, standing to watch. As the MSO became sector, as the VTS transitioned to part of our command, and as the towers fell and the security of the maritime domain tightened, and as the Casco Busan collided with the Bay Bridge, and the VTS took action. As the new bridge was built and we demolished the old, he was here as the ships grew from 400 feet in length to the 1,300-foot ultra-large vessels we see today. When Dan started, Loran was common, and now all ships have GPS on board. Through all this, Dan and the VTS have been here to make sure that passengers arrive safely, cargo gets to its destination on time, and the pristine waters of the bay are preserved for future generations. Dan Brennan will be missed, and I hope he feels a sense that the entire journey has meant something, because it has. Now, I know that this ceremony is being recorded, so I have a message for Dan's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Brennan. Sir, ma'am, congratulations. This is your day as much as it is your son's. You should be very proud of how you raised him, how you instilled a sense of service in him, and how you shaped the dedicated, selfless coworker that his colleagues have come to rely on. And now as Dan transitions to retirement and heads back to his hometown, Salt Lake, where his family still resides, I am reminded of a quote by Enoch Powell. If my ship sails from sight, it doesn't mean my journey ends. It simply means the river bends. Dan, thank you for an amazing 30 years of service, and best of luck in retirement. And now if you would join me for some recognition at the podium.
Thank you, Captain Saralla. Ladies and gentlemen, Captain Saralla will present the Commander's Award for Civilian Service. The Commander, Coast Guard Sector San Francisco, takes pleasure in presenting the Commander's Award for Civilian Service to Mr. Daniel G. Brennan, United States Coast Guard, for service as set forth in the following citation. For professional achievement in the superior performance of his duties as a vessel traffic management specialist at Coast Guard Sector San Francisco, California, from August 1990 to February 2017. For 26 years, Mr. Brennan has been instrumental to ensuring the safe navigation of more than 2 million vessels, preventing collisions, elisions, and groundings in the dynamic and economically vital San Francisco Bay Area. In 1994, he assisted the Vessel Traffic Service and customers in the transition from a voluntary to a mandatory participation, and facilitated public education and enforcement of 7 new regulated navigation areas, dramatically enhancing predictability of vessel movements. The following year, he helped the VTS transition from a manual system on paper cards and raw radar to a fully automated traffic management system. Over the years, he provided expert waterways management and coordination for countless large-scale marine events involving thousands of recreational vessels while facilitating the safe transits and commercial passenger traffic. These included a parade of ships and air shows during 26 consecutive San Francisco Fleet Week celebrations, annual blessing of the fleet and opening day on the Bay events, the 2007 Major League Baseball All-Star Week, and the 34th America's Cup in 2013. During this period, he helped facilitate multiple regional capital investment and transportation projects, including the building or retrofit of 5 major bridges, 50-foot deepening and new container berth construction projects in the Port of Oakland, and the relocation of the VTS from its legacy facility atop Yerba Buena Island to its new center here at Sector San Francisco. He demonstrated outstanding versatility, dedication to national security as the Coast Guard expanded its mission sets following the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks, helping to facilitate advance notice of arrival compliance, robust maritime domain awareness, and increased number of vessel inspections, while minimizing delays to commercial vessels. Throughout his tenure, he helped train and mentor over 75 new vessel traffic management specialists, leaving a lasting legacy on the VTS watch floor and vessel traffic management professionals. Mr. Brennan's exceptional ability, uncommon initiative, and loyal dedication to duty reflected credit upon himself and were in keeping with the highest traditions of the United States Coast Guard. A.J. Serrallo, Captain, United States Coast Guard, Commander, Sector San Francisco. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Captain. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Greg Rule will present the Department of Homeland Security retirement plaque and a few special gifts from the VTS crew.
From the United States Department of Homeland Security, the United States Coast Guard Certificate of Service, presented to Daniel Gerard Brennan. On the occasion of retirement after 30 years and 7 months of service to the people of the United States of America. Signed, Captain Anthony J. Serrallo, Commanding Officer.
That is an amazing looking plaque and certificate.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, be seated. This is a gift from one of our supervisors. He's Chief OSC Sean Young. And what it is a bronze headset. He personally made this. And the headset is a kind of a fun item because whenever you come into the vessel traffic service, you have to be quiet. Can't yell, can't talk in minimum voice. Captain.
Yeah, I know. I think they actually hate it when I walk in there.
Because we're all wearing one of these headsets. We're all plugged in, listening to what's going on the radios, and so this will be like a forever memento for our time here as the VTS. So it's beautiful. Okay, thanks, Greg.
Bronze headset.
Bronze headset. Never had that. Until this morning, Dan has not seen this, but it is a picture of one of his favorite reference points. At the VTS, we have to learn hundreds and hundreds of geographic reference points when we do our reports of where vessels are. And there's one location that only Dan has ever used. Only Dan uses this place. And it's just outside the Golden Gate Bridge. It's called Baker Beach. And some of you may know something about this beach. It's very peculiar. I'm not sure if Dan really knows what it's for. I presume he does. But if you don't, take a look online. Get an interesting little chuckle. But Baker Beach, and it's at sunset, and we've seen hundreds of these from our camera sites, and it's hopefully a very personal memento for you. It is. And one more item that I want to personally thank Lieutenant Deacon for this shadow box of the U.S. flag with embroidery here, and it is something very, very special as well. Thank you. Spot for a home for this. Thank you.
That's it. Okay. If you look very closely on that beautiful picture, you might see what is special about Baker Beach. Hopefully not. Now, Dan, if you'd like to say a few words, I'll turn things over to you. Ladies and gentlemen, our honoree, Daniel Brennan. I didn't write anything. Don't read.
Obviously, it's really emotional for me. I look back, and I'm really glad I did it. I got very sick years ago. I was within hours of dying and just totally helpless. Everybody surrounded me and gave me either 300 or 600 hours of their personal time, so I could heal. And you're certainly not going to find that on the outside. And it's a great organization, and it's just time for me to go. Thanks.
Thank you, Dan. Now, in keeping with a long-held maritime tradition, especially here at VTS, Mr. Tom Boone will relieve Mr. Dan Brennan of the watch. Tom?
For over 30 years, this sailor has stood the watch. While some of us were in our bunks at night, this sailor stood the watch. While some of us were in school learning our trade, this shipmate stood the watch. Yes, even before some of us were born into this world, this shipmate stood the watch. In those years when the storm clouds of war were seen brewing on the horizon of history, this shipmate stood the watch. Many times he would cast an eye ashore and see his family standing there, needing his guidance and help, needing that hand to hold during those hard times. But he still stood the watch. He stood the watch for over 30 years. He stood the watch so that we, our families, and our fellow countrymen could sleep soundly in safety. Each and every night, knowing that a sailor stood the watch. Today, we're here to say, shipmate, the watch stands relieved. Relieved by those you have trained, guided, and led. Dan, shipmate, you stand relieved. We have the watch.
Thank you. Now we'll listen for just a second as we make some contacts out on the San Francisco Bay. This is coming live from our Vessel Traffic Operations Center here.
All stations in the San Francisco Bay. This is United States Coast Guard Vessel Traffic Service, San Francisco break. Today, Mr. Dan Brennan, a dedicated 26-year veteran at the Vessel Traffic Service, San Francisco, retires. With thanks for your support and professionalism, he completes this chapter and begins a new one. Break. This is United States Coast Guard Vessel Traffic Service, San Francisco out.
With our little Comco, we don't pick up a lot of audio from around the bay. It's coming into our traffic center. We'll provide a audio recording for Dan of all of the calls that come back.
Okay, thanks.
This went out over the airwaves as far east as Stockton and Sacramento, out to sea, 50 miles down to Redwood City. Hundreds of mariners got to hear that. Dan, on behalf of everyone here and those who could not be, I want to say thank you for your service and most of all for your friendship.
Thank you.
And even more than that, I want to thank you for your unrivaled example of selflessness, teamwork, and devotion to duty. You always said yes to whatever was asked, and most of the time, no one even had to ask. We can fill your position, but we cannot replace you. Mr. Sean Kelly, our VTS director, is very disappointed that he can't be here today. He's at home convalescing after some surgery, but he did want me to tell you that he has fond memories from as far back as, quote, when you had hair, which you still have some hair, and a Corvette. I remember the hair, but I don't remember the Corvette. Did you have a Corvette? Okay. What I do remember, and now I have to turn around and double click here, is a day back in 2002. Oh, let's see if I have to install.
My day with Dan.
My day with Dan. September 3rd, 2002. When Dan's trust went much further than any level of trust we've imparted on him over these many years as a vessel traffic management specialist. And that's a very, very important job. The VTS operators speak for the captain of the port over the radio. It's a very important job. But there's one more important job than that. And that was back in 2002 when Dan was Captain Brennan from the flight deck and I was his passenger. Dan took me flying on a little tiny plane, and here are a few photos from that day. Remember this, Dan? Mm-hmm. This was when Dan was like screwing on the propeller. He jiggled it. I was watching. That's just my selfie to show I was there, right? I had pictures too, I'm sorry. Right. There's Dan. That was my door. He was making sure it was firmly affixed to the aircraft, I suppose. I wasn't asking any questions. I was just preparing for my day. This was 2002, by the way. I had only worked at VTS for about 6 years at this point, so I didn't really know Dan that well. That was really a lot of trust in Dan, right? There's more of that hair. How did I take that picture? I was sitting next to you, but turn around, Dan. That's not, most of it is still there, right? This got me a little concerned. He was doing some kind of hand gesture, and then this hand was like waving around. But we were flying, right? We took an awesome about 2-hour flight out over Livermore. That's the California Aqueduct coming out of coming out of Stockton. This concerned me a bit. He started clutching his head. And then he stopped. He let me fly the plane for a second. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say that, but I did get to do it. He did a vertigo lesson with me where I got to close my eyes, and he steered the plane into different positions, and I had to try to describe what we were doing, and it's impossible. Something that if you fly planes, you might be experienced with. And there we were landing, coming in on final approach. Touchdown. And Dan, remember the cats and raccoons? I had to include a picture of these. This was our traffic center up at the top of the hill, the parking lot just outside of it. We took care of a colony of cats for about 16 years, and Dan was instrumental in that. And here you see a cat and a raccoon cohabitating, eating right next to each other. Dan, that's awesome. We're going to miss you, buddy. Thank you.
Right, don't show those pictures to see your sheep much later.
All of those cats have later since passed away from natural causes after about 15 years of life. So, right? Dan, thank you very much for being such a great friend over these years. You trained me. You were my first OJT trainer when I showed up at VTS. First day in the operations center, Nervous Scott. There's Dan as my trainer. My final duty as the Master of Ceremony is another VTS San Francisco tradition that will come to an end, frankly, when the supply runs out. And that duty is to give you one of VTS San Francisco's few remaining legacy challenge coins. So on behalf of Mr. Kelly, our director, and the women and men of VTS San Francisco, congratulations, Dan. Thank you for a fantastic career, and I wish you the best in a long, happy, healthy retirement. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. I have nothing further.
Okay, so I have one last presentation. Dan, on behalf of the entire Sector San Francisco family, congratulations, and I'm going to present you with one of our command cards.
Thank you, Captain.
for everybody's attendance today for the retirement ceremony for Mr. Brennan. It's remarkable the amount of service that you provided, Dan. Should be really proud. And thanks for your service and your dedication to us.
Thanks.
Thanks, folks.
Thanks again.
You're welcome, man. Congratulations.
We're going to miss you, Dan.
Thanks, Scott.